Welcome to Smalltalk Daily for Monday, June 8th, 2009. This morning I thought I'd go through kind of a deep system thing in Smalltalk, and that's the become method. Become is implemented in class object, and it's a way of swapping two objects. It's not something you typically want to use in application code. I point it out simply because it's useful to understand from the standpoint of some frameworks that use it. For instance, if you're doing remote messaging, oftentimes you'll have a proxy object suddenly become your real object as it moves across the wire. But not something you want to use in standard development, just useful to know. So as an example, I have this myModel object which has nothing more than an instance variable so that we can watch what's happening as I do this. So let's use this object, and coming in here I am going to go ahead and create some objects. So I have my variable 1, which is just a string, variable 2, which is another string, and then I have my dependents, which are the two model objects. So I'm going to create those two, and then I'm going to add a dependency so that if I look at variable 1, I do an inspect on that guy, you can see what I have here. I have a value holder on a string, and then I have a dependency with dependent 1. And likewise for this one here, variable 2, it has as dependents dependent 2. So that's all that's really going on. So now let me try this. var1 become var2. So we'll do it on that. Now, if I look at var1, you'll notice that what's happened is it's become the second object. But interestingly, the dependency has remained the same. And if you looked at var2, you'd see the same thing. The strings are switched, but the dependents have remained the same. Now, that might seem counterintuitive based on what I just explained become does. But if we look at the implementation of become, so let's do a browse implementers of become, and we take a look at that in class object, you see that it says swap the state of the receiver with that of the object. Be careful to preserve dependents. So in fact, it swaps the state of two objects, but the dependents stay where they started. So that's an interesting way of doing this, and that's something you should be aware of if you end up writing code that needs to use become. If you want to swap everything around, there's another method called become no retry. So let's recreate these two sets of objects to get everything back into its fresh, pristine state. And now we'll do this var1 become no retry var2. Do it on that. Now let's take a look at var1, do an inspect. We see that it's been swapped, and the dependency has also been swapped. So var1 is now dependent on dependent 2 because it's completely switched positions. And likewise, if we take a look at var2, you see that it's going to be dependent on dependent 1. So they've been completely switched. Finally, one last one that may actually be something you want to use in some cases, and that is this one-way become. So let's go ahead and do this pristine setup again. And now we'll do this one-way become. So we'll do var1 one-way become, do it. And what it does is var1 has become var2. So if we inspect that, it's become var2, including the dependency. But if we look at var2, it's been left alone. So we inspect it, and you see it's still the var, and it's still dependent on dependent 2. So var1 has become var2 with var2 left alone. So that's one that you may actually have some use for in some levels of application code. Probably not common, but it's way safer than using become or become no retry. Anyway, that's a quick exploration of this level of system code that you probably won't need very often. But if you need to use these, it's helpful to know what they do and why. Anyway, that's it for today. Until next time, have fun with Smalltalk.